Hello, hello. Welcome to our Tuesday sit. Glad you're here. Before we start, let's take a moment like we do. I'm just pulling up my notes. And yeah, we'll just check in. Yeah, just taking some moments to let your awareness settle, come closer to the bone. Noticing what it's like to come into your body. And then sinking into your heart and noticing, yeah, what's the intention? What's the intention? And remembering the practice of inquiry, is this asking? And then allowing the answer to emerge through felt sense, image, word, noticing the way your inner experience arises to be sort of decoded by you. What is your intention? What is it that you most want to feel or receive? And so we'll orient to our space and we'll orient to our room. Yeah, looking over both shoulders. And then we'll orient to each other. So glad you're here. There's that saying, no mud, no lotus. So this talk could be called no patience, no peace. No patience, no peace. And it's really good news that patience can be cultivated. And practice. Like there's no such thing as being good at patience or bad at patience. I think it's fair to say we're all impatient. And I think you'll really get that as I unpack a little bit more of this. It was something that in my last retreat that I sat at Spirit Rock, it was so apparent to me how little patience I had. I hadn't realized it before. And when we realize these things about ourselves, it's good news. Even though it doesn't feel like it, first the seeing of it can be a little bit startling. But part of the reason that we talk about these things is because talking about them dismantles our identification with them. It dismantles the shame that we have about it, so we can actually see it with more clarity. Shame keeps that at bay, so we can't quite see it. So to see, I'm like, wow. It's subtle and not so subtle. Subtle and not so subtle. And so before I say more about this, let's go ahead and talk more about patience, what gets in the way of patience, and aspects to patience that are good to reflect on in terms of, we get really nuanced with how we can practice patience, because the more nuanced we are, the more possible the practice becomes, the clearer we are. So I'll unpack 3 aspects of patience, and then we'll practice together. So this is Mary Oliver. Who made the world? Who made the swan and the black bear? Who made the grasshopper? This grasshopper, I mean. The one who has flung herself out of the grass. The one who is eating sugar out of my hand and who is moving her jaws back and forth instead of up and down. Who is gazing around with her enormous and complicated eyes. Now she lifts her pale forearms and thoroughly washes her face. Now she snaps her wings open and floats away. I don't know exactly what a prayer is. I do know how to pay attention, how to fall down into the grass, how to kneel down in the grass, how to be idle and blessed, how to stroll through the fields, which is what I've been doing all day. Tell me, what else should I have done? Doesn't everything die at last and too soon? Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? I got Mary Oliver's, that's The Summer Day, very well-known Mary Oliver poem. That last line is the one that we're most familiar with, I think. Though I think that if we spend more time with what becomes before that, if we took some time and were patient with it, we might see the depth of everything that leads up to that last line. That actually presents us with a question that might take us into terrain that's more noun-like than verb-like. Meaning, I think the noun-like way that we view life, like there's somewhere to get, and we gotta, there's some way we could make everything really like unchangeable, solid. There's something that we could get this place of perfect ease where everything is working out for a way that makes me comfortable all the time. That lean into that is exactly impatience. And I think in her poem here, And in the poems of her book before she died that was published, it might have been published once she had already passed, but it was her most recent collection of poems. Patience is so much a part of every poem in that book. And I think of Mary Oliver whenever I think of patience, and I think of that poem of her walking around idle and blessed, not leaning into any other moment, and not making this question of what are you going to do with your life so noun-like and abstract. She actually shows us the practice of what we do with this one wild and precious life. It's like, it's really about taking it in. I highly recommend Felicity, that book of, I'm looking around because I'm like, I have it here somewhere. There it is. Oop, dropped my glasses. So it's Felicity. It's, a lot more God in this one. Almost every poem has God in it. Not almost every, but much more than, in her prior works, which, makes sense, I would think, because she's glimpsing the end of her life. So patience is integral to inward and outward peace. Because life is messy and unpredictable. And yet we can be at peace with it. Anytime we want life to be different than it is, we're caught in impatience. And I think about how we experience this in the body, and usually it's a tension. There's tension. There's some kind of agitation. That's a better description, I think, maybe of the heart, but also of the body. Agitation. Patience is not grinning and bearing it. And it is one of the 10 paramis or perfections. This is particularly a teaching in the Theravadan tradition of Buddhism. So it's one of 10, and these are things we can practice. I need to remember that. I need to remember that, otherwise it's easy to judge myself. So there's generosity, virtue, renunciation, discernment, equanimity, patience, persistence, truth, determination, and goodwill. These 10 qualities are present when the mind is awakened. Naturally. These are natural qualities of the awakened heart mind. And they're also qualities we can cultivate. And that through the cultivation of these qualities, we can awaken the heart mind. So they can it naturally arises. And, in the many, many cases when that's not happening, we can practice. And then know that through the practice, the practice itself helps to awaken the heart mind. I had said, there's this shows up for big ways and small ways like this. There's impatience, it's opposite. So some examples are like false urgency, like when you feel like you have to do it right now. when that a feeling comes over you and you feel like you have to do it right this second. I have to do it now. I have to say it now. I have to do it now. I have to call. I have to check that email. I have to check on this thing. I have to do it right now. Or FOMO, or feeling behind kind of chronically. I'm just not at where I should be. Isn't this really common for people? Yeah, 100%. Suffering, unrecognized suffering, is very common for people, including us. We tolerate this ick in our bodies a lot. And we're unconscious to it. We're unconscious to the fact that it is suffering.
So the space of this have to is so prevalent, like it can take over the existence. I'm just saying because I've experienced that, like, ongoingly, because my life, I mean, this experience of have to, like, just if you let it can control your whole existence.
Exactly. That's why we're talking. Exactly.
Yeah.
And
And
Candace, I'm gonna mute you now so I'm gonna get. No, it's okay. I'm gonna go back to the Dharma talk. Thank you. Yeah. This does absolutely, as Candace was just saying, run our lives, and we don't recognize that it's suffering. We just think it's the way it is. Right. So imagine the possibility of living with more freedom from that, not being compelled by that or believing in it. I'm behind what? Who? You know, like what does that even mean? You know, but it's this sense, this feeling that shows up. And these are small ways that I mentioned. Yeah, but then there's bigger ways, and we'll talk more about that when we talk now about the 3 essential aspects. You know who does a nice job of this that I want to mention as well is on Tricycle, Dawn Scott, who is one of my teachers. She has Dharma talks on this as well. These 3 aspects, essential aspects, were pinpointed by the Buddha, and so they're often brought forward in Dharma teachings. Before I move into gentle forbearance, calm endurance of hardship, and acceptance of reality, I wanted to mention this quote from the Dalai Lama. The practice of patience guards us against losing our presence of mind. It enables us to remain undisturbed, even when the situation is really difficult. It gives us a certain amount of inner peace, which allows us some self-control so that we can choose to respond to situations in an appropriate and compassionate manner, rather than being driven by our disturbing emotions. Patience, vital. Maybe not popular, given the show up today, you know, like, I don't know. But here you are. And I'm like, man, I'm glad you're here, not missing this teaching, because it's integral. Patience, no patience, no peace. If we don't understand patience, if we're too busy to be bothered with patience, if patience doesn't sound interesting, then like we have no peace. There's no way of having it really in a consistent way without understanding patience and practicing it. We can't do one without the other. So good on you for being here. Um,
I
let's
would miss it for the world.
I know, Candace, thank you. Yeah. Let's talk about those three. So I'm going to start with gentle forbearance. First of all, what is forbearance was my question when I was doing the research for this talk. And gentle forbearance, or forbearance, is refraining from hurting those who have hurt us. Refraining from hurting those who have hurt us. So I'll just let that land. I like the refraining part, especially because I feel like that gives us more of a taste of the felt sense. I mean, there's little refraining that we get to do. Yeah, like it happens for me sometimes in my sits. I might have set my timer for a certain length of time, but then maybe something inside me is like, that's enough, or but you have this to do, or wait, you got to go do that. Yeah, so I can notice like I refrain from getting up. There's a compulsion or there's a sense in my body that I need to get up. And so we can work with that little subtle thing in our practice, just in our meditation practice in that way. Patience is, it's good to have training ground for it. It's good to have training ground for it. It makes me, and I couldn't help when I'm thinking of examples for this, but I know we're all tired of talking about it, but the forever memorable slap that happened at the Oscars, and I think about Chris Rock and there's a lot of gentle forbearance that was practiced there in the moment, but then also in the aftermath. Yeah, as I tracked his response to what had happened, like how is he going to handle it? I'm like, wow. This is a good example of gentle forbearance, refraining from blame and criticism. There was a lot of restraint. So the next aspect is calm endurance of hardship. Calm endurance of hardship. I mean, again, endurance. So it's bringing up this quality in the mind body that we come into contact with, which I like. And it's calm, right? A calm endurance. So getting a sense of that, of hardship, because it happens in life. It will happen many moments today. You and I will be met with moments of hardship. It will be part of whatever we are trying to create. No mud, no lotus, no patience, no peace. Patience is it's a gritty, it's like a, it implies grit. It implies something rubbing against it. Hence, we wouldn't, this quality wouldn't, it wouldn't be necessary to name it. We understand that if we're going to create anything, that there will be patience required. There will need, it's like I think about doing something you have resistance around, like writing the Monday email. Like it's like that's, like me, but you have these things too, where it's like I need endurance, and it needs, whenever I'm doing that, because there's like a lot, sometimes there's a lot of struggle in the writing process for me when I do that. And I have to endure that struggle. I have to have patience, or I just will give up, and I won't do what I need to do to let it, to write it. We won't wake up an hour early if we don't realize that there's calm. This is part of patience. We may get bored, or we may get frustrated. Rather than quitting, we can investigate. This is a quote. We just need to remember to practice relaxing into our life in all its joys and sorrows, and to relinquish the need to know what's going to happen next. What would that mean for you, to relinquish the need to know what's going to happen next? In subtle and not so subtle ways, we're leaning into what's next. We're preparing ourselves for what's next in all kinds of ways. What would it be like to relinquish that? And then the last aspect of patience and the cultivation of it is acceptance. And let's make it simple. We accept whatever our experience is as it is, and we don't have to like it to accept it. It's, this is how it is right now. And what is my relationship to it? Patience allows us to have a mind that is rested or able to rest, not constantly planning or rehearsing or pinging to the autobiography of you. How's it going to be? What's going to do? Where's it going? What does it mean? This is exhausting. Imagine a mind that is peaceful, that's able to be idle and blessed. We can't rest in now if we've got to know next. Hence, patience is a practice of faith. It is a practice of faith. We're going to practice it in our meditation in a moment. But before we do that, I wanted to mention a sense of humor, like curiosity about our lives. These are things that enhance and help patience. What would being patient mean right now is sort of a question we can ask, or an inquiry. Any moment when we remember it, what would being patient mean right now? In our meditation, we're going to practice today 2 We're going to practice shamatha, or one-pointedness, mindfulness of the breath for our purposes today. So when we calm the mind with one-pointed attention, this enhances and feeds, kind of nourishes patience. Presence nourishes patience. And then compassion, working with some phrases. And we'll kind of move towards the end of our shamatha practice. I'll invite us into that. So let's go ahead and Marlene, I'm so glad you're here. Let's go ahead and, of course, and Candace and Alan, so glad you're here. Let's get comfortable. So find your meditation posture. Definitely, Marlene, go back and on the replay, you can find the very beginning. I'm not sure how, you might have been waiting in the waiting room for a while before I let you in. Because I was like, oh no, there's someone in the waiting room. Yeah. So if we're in a chair, oh, sorry, Fifi. If you're in a chair, try not to kick your dog as you bring your feet flat on the floor, or you're just making yourself comfortable in whatever way you can, given your limitations or your restrictions with your body. Who made the world? Who made the swan and the black bear? Who made the grasshopper? This grasshopper, I mean, the one who has flung herself out of the grass, and the one who is eating sugar out of my hand, who is moving her jaws back and forth instead of up and down, who is gazing around with her enormous and complicated eyes. Now she lifts her pale forearms and thoroughly washes her face. Now she snaps her wings open and floats away. I don't know exactly what a prayer is. I do know how to pay attention, how to fall down into the grass, how to kneel down in the grass, how to be idle and blessed, how to stroll through the fields, which is what I've been doing all day. Tell me, what else should I have done? Doesn't everything die at last and too soon? We're starting to just pay exquisite attention to the feeling of breath in your body. Everything else just falls away. If you're accustomed or familiar with low belly breathing or hara breathing, or not making the breath different, that's important. This is not pranayama. And there's something particularly important that's cultivated here with awareness when we don't alter the breath in any way. We just allow it to be as it is. But if we can effortlessly belly breathe, letting yourself do that. You can trust that you're doing it right. Just bringing awareness. It's effortless. Our intention is exquisitely oriented towards breathing. And if there are sensations in the body that feel like they want attention, you can move awareness away from breath and move it to whatever in the body is wanting attention. Whatever sensation, emotion. You might notice if it's pleasant or unpleasant or neutral. Just get curious about it. When it no longer becomes interesting, awareness can find your breath again. You can become curious about how patient we're being with ourselves. Is our inner tone gentle? Is it critical? Gentleness, what would gentleness feel like? Being gentle with your inner experience, being gentle with however you think your practice is going. May I be happy just as I am. May I be peaceful with whatever is happening. As I say the phrase, you feel free to repeat it to yourself. Sense that the space between your lungs, between the rib cage, the right and the left, sense that you're saying the phrase from there. May I be happy just as I am. May I be peaceful with whatever is happening. May I be happy just as I am. May I be peaceful with whatever is happening. May I be happy just as I am. May I be peaceful with whatever is happening. May I be happy just as I am. May I be peaceful with whatever is happening. And now just continuing with those phrases. May I be happy just as I am. May I be peaceful with whatever is happening. Just working with those phrases in your own timing. Be gentle and easy with the phrases. No evaluation is necessary. Just to do the practice is enough. So good to sit with you. May we be patient today. And may we continue to remember patience is a practice. Feel free to leave a donation. These talks are freely offered, and your donation really does make a difference. So thank you, thank you, thank you. The link is below this if you're watching it on the replay, and if not, you know where to go.